Why the hell are we back here? Well, there's this new game called Halo, made by this company that made Myth, Oni, and Marathon, with a new alien space game. It's so innovative and has online multiplayer that feels unlike any other game out there. It becomes beloved by so many, it spawns a whole franchise. No, it's so popular, it inspires a whole generation of players interested in it. Halo 2 specifically was so popular for PvP, it became the face of Major League Gaming.
It's Carbon's changing up their strategy.
Oh!
My jumping BXR up in the air on Ogre 2.
He's a tremendous team player, and he's got to crack that defense somehow. I mean, look at him, he's tossing grenades over a wall there, just desperately trying to rack up kills.
Moving in aggressively on Gandhi, who just took down Ogre 2. Gandhi somehow able to escape, avoid him.
He's coming up, oh, he's coming up, oh, he's coming up, oh, he's coming up.
Okay, Matt.
Grenade, oh, he's able to dodge it. And then rampage!
Halo 2 had full ranking systems that would inspire the next era of games to have one just like it. Hey, why are you putting me back in time again and handing me a piece of paper that says the year is 2003? A new game, Call of Duty. It's so war and realistic focus that it spawns a whole franchise because people like how good it feels to shoot the guns. Let's make it modern and add a 4 onto it. Call it Modern Warfare. Brilliant. Let's also introduce a whole perk, leveling, and prestige system so players are incentivized to hit max rank and keep playing for a long time. Reward them with cosmetics for doing so too. Sounds sweet. You want 3 of those? Do you want those with remasters? Damn right. All right. Yeah, I'm bored. Yeah, me too. Yeah, let's put a poster on our game that shows this little idea called Destiny. What's Destiny? Our Destiny. Hey, that's a good one. Destiny's Crucible. A place where you could take Call of Duty's gunplay, grind, and cosmetics, and mix it with Halo's incredible campaign, abilities, and gunplay of its own. These ideas were the core and the start of something potentially brilliant for Activision and Bungies' 10-year plan. In fact, the idea of mixing PvE and PvP was the pure foundation that would separate Destiny from the rest of its competition. Over the years, this would evolve, change, fall, rise, and fall again, to the point where now, even with a full rework on a ranked ladder, it's worse than it was in Halo 2's conception in 2004. So, how did we get here? How did this happen? What chain of events led to the rise and downfall of Destiny's PvP? More specifically, what led to the abandonment and lack of innovation in the Crucible? And how can it be fixed? Let's hop on the magic school egg of decisions that landed the game where it is right now. Now, if you're new to the game, and you need something to sip on for copious amounts of hours, GamerSubs is doing a Christmas sale. I know Christmas is over, but the sale is still active for limited supplies only, so you can use code EVAN. Get yourself some sweet deals. Stay for the ending, because I have something very important to tell you right when this video ends. Or you can skip directly to it if you want to get the spoiler. In 2014, Destiny's Crucible was on the rise, as players flocked to the popular multiplayer shooter for its intense, fast-paced action. The game's unique blend of first-person shooter mechanics and RPG-style character development had captured the imagination of gamers worldwide, and the Crucible was where they could put their skills to the test against other players. At the time, Crucible was a major draw for many players, with a wide variety of game modes and maps to choose from. The game's developer Bungie was constantly updating and improving the Crucible experience, adding new weapons, perks, and other features to keep players engaged. This included a very sharp focus on perks for weapons that felt engaging and truly changed how you could play the game. Perks like Final Round and knee pads may have been seen as power creep in PvP, but it's exactly what players wanted: a boost, an advantage for all that grind. The fact that players could engage in the endgame of Destiny's world and push the limits of endgame of PvP felt enticing, but there wasn't exactly an endgame added. In fact, there was only some core modes to elevate the PvP experience, and some broken weapons to boot. One thing to remember is that while there was a draw to Destiny's PvP, there was not a focus on balance, with the sandbox not even being separated from PvE, so weapons like Vex Mythoclast for Raid Day did this. And weapons like Pocket Infinity did this. Activision may not have been great in some ways for the game, but both Activision and Bungie understood that they needed something big for the endgame of PvP, the way Vault of Glass and Crota's End were for PvE. So, we have Destiny's Trials of Osiris was released in 2015 and has since become one of the most popular and most challenging endgame activities in the game. For those unfamiliar with the mode, Trials of Osiris is a 3v3 elimination style PvP mode where teams compete to win the most rounds. The Trials of Osiris is a great way for Destiny players to test their skills against other players, and it also helps them gear up their characters quickly. The mode requires teamwork and strategy, and it's a great way for players to show off their skill. In 2015, the rewards for Trials of Osiris were generous, and they ranged from rare gear to powerful weapons and armor, which is when a team wins 9 games without losing a single one. The rules for Trials of Osiris were simple, but the competition was fierce. The game mode has become so popular that it has been featured in numerous tournaments and events. Overall, Destiny's Trials of Osiris was a great way for players to test their skills against other players, and it's a great way to gear up quickly. Nothing was more telling than seeing that flawless chest shine with an adept reward.
I got Jewel of Osiris.
You know, shit like that.
Yes!
When it comes to
Woo!
Now, getting a gun is cool, but how about a gun with an affinity to burn to it, and an extra perk on top of what it could have already had? Exotic emblems for reaching flawless chest was also nice, just like flying into Mercury when it wasn't a part of the game until years later. Osiris was this imagination of an insanely powerful warlock, presumed to be corrupted and dead. The Trials was a smash hit for Bungie, and the viewership across the game grew immensely, propelling careers of prominent content creators and establishing discussion amongst the entire gaming world that Bungie had done it again. Years went on, and Trials, just like PvP, established a formula of consistent maps, consistent modes, consistent balance, and consistent enjoyment of expectations being met or over-delivered. This was the golden age of Destiny's PvP. Destiny 2's Crucible had a tumultuous 2016. The PvP game mode was originally met with excitement from the community, with many hoping that the sequel to the beloved Destiny 1 would bring some fresh and exciting changes to the game. This included esports organizations getting heavily involved in PvP, and massive tournaments hosted by Bungie to take the scene. It was clear that Destiny 2 may have gone casual on the focus in PvE, as evidenced by Bungie themselves saying this in the most recent GDC presentation. PvP was meant to be competitive, balanced, and closer to Overwatch than Destiny. Destiny 2's Crucible has seen its fair share of struggles since release in 2016. For many players, the game's competitive multiplayer PvP has been a source of frustration, with a variety of issues hindering the quality of the experience. The most significant issue is the lack of balance within the game. This has seen a number of overpowered weapons and subclasses, making it difficult for players to compete on a level playing field. But in 2016, balance was too far in one direction, that it led to matches ending due to time, and not to player input. It also led to abilities being underwhelming, and laning fire instead of normal gunfights. The second someone pushed, they were dead. So the move was to wait, and wait, until the game ran out of time. The combination of these two issues has led to a significant decrease in the enjoyment of Crucible. Another major criticism of the Crucible has been its lack of content. In vanilla Destiny 2, the game did launch with a variety of maps and modes, but many of them were built for 4v4 gameplay that fit this slow sandbox. So over time, as this would get updated, these just didn't feel the same. The Trials of Osiris, the beloved child of Destiny's PvP, was now a 4v4 Trials of the Nine, with objective-based ideals and static rewards lacking nuance that led to players burning out faster. Combined with the idea that Curse of Osiris was the worst time in Destiny's history, PvP would lose a massive amount of players, even though it would receive maps over time. The one saving grace was the competitive Crucible's incentive in the Warmind DLC. This saw Redrix's Claymore, the first pinnacle weapon to come to Destiny, with the perk Desperado only on this pulse rifle. For a heavy time investment in competitive against a skill-based match-made ladder, this was the first time Destiny's vanilla year that had received so much flack would get the rewards it definitely deserved. Redrix was a stepping stone for what would come to be, just as the Go Fast update would be a major step in the sandbox changes to make Crucible more inviting. The game would go on to change some systems back to Destiny 1 days, but this time, incentive would be the course in everything, and Bungie would change their motto on front of HQ to say, "We make games we want to play." Destiny 2 Forsaken brought with it some major changes to PvP. The multiplayer game mode had been revamped with the addition of ranked playlists, new maps, and game modes. The revamp of ranked playlists in Destiny 2 Forsaken marked a major shift in the ways players could compete in the Crucible. Each rank felt better along the journey, especially when every single season of Forsaken introduced a pinnacle weapon to chase from competitive Crucible. The only downside is that there was no Trials of the Nine or Osiris, as Bungie wanted to work on it so it didn't come out half-baked. Iron Banner had weapons and armor. Crucible vendor Shaxx had new weapons and armor too. It was a complete 180 from vanilla. The team at Bungie had also added a handful of new maps to Crucible. These maps range from smaller, more intimate maps to larger maps that can accommodate more weapon variety. All the new maps were designed with a unique theme and aesthetic in mind to provide an enjoyable and varied experience for players. Bungie also added some new modes, which aren't big game changers, but it felt like a return to form for the studio, and was a major victory among fans. These changes to the Crucible kept players coming back for more, and provided an enjoyable, competitive experience for everyone. The new ranked playlist, maps, game modes, they all gave players the chance to prove their skills and earn exclusive rewards. With these changes, Forsaken made Crucible more of an exciting and rewarding experience for all. It wasn't perfect, of course. There were still balancing issues out the wazoo, especially with the exotics from Forsaken, but it was exciting and innovative. In the documentary of Bungie's run to Shadowkeep, Bungie directly stated that there would be a renewed focus on PvP, and they sounded confident in that. So when the time came, Destiny 2's Shadowkeep saw a big pivot from the year before, but fans were more than understanding at the time. Sure, you had some sour fans, but most players were understanding of Bungie's next big adventure since splitting with Activision in 2018. Shadowkeep released with barely any Crucible updates at launch, a lot of sandbox tweaks to those roaming supers from Forsaken, but one brand new map from the whole year, and barely any Crucible additions. Gone were pinnacle weapons for some reason, and instead were ritual weapons, which were sort of like pinnacles, but they didn't have an exclusive perk like the pinnacles before them. Time went on, and eventually Bungie would bring back the Trials of Osiris in a triumphant way after the amazing Season of Dawn. Trials started off great in its opening weekend, boasting a ton of players, and Bungie came out swinging with 4 returning Destiny 1 maps, the original D1 armor sets, and the weapons we once loved. But they made more than a few fatal errors in the return. For starters, Destiny has seen its share of cheaters. It's an ongoing problem that Bungie is actively working to combat. Cheaters are using a variety of methods to gain an unfair advantage of their opponents, such as using aimbots, wall hacks, and other exploits. Aimbots are programs that allow players to automatically aim and shoot at opponents, allowing them to take out enemies with minimal effort. Wall hacks allow players to see through walls and other objects, giving them an advantage in terms of knowing the location of their opponents. These exploits are not only unfair, but they can also be dangerous, as they can give cheaters an opportunity to exploit other players. Bungie has since implemented measures to combat cheaters, such as introducing stricter anti-cheat measures and banning players who are found to be cheating. However, this hasn't completely eliminated the problem, as cheaters are still finding their ways to exploit the system. In order to combat cheaters, Bungie introduced a help forum to report a cheater. But Bungie also made a fatal error on Trials release, making Trials free to play, with no verification needed. Cheaters were everywhere, especially on PC, and in a mode where you must win to reap the benefits. This absolutely decimated enjoyment. Not to mention, the mode suffered from some serious balance issues. Gone were the ornament glows, and instead, an emblem that you have to wear at all times that will make your armor glow if you go flawless for that week. Trials is still facing this ongoing problem, as Destiny isn't a balanced game, and never will be. So a 7 wins in a row with 1 mercy system just isn't doing it. The rewards were nice, but they were also lacking the amount of cosmetic and random post-game rewards players were used to in Destiny 1. It's a problem Destiny faces more than any other game. Then you over or under deliver, so now players have expectations depending on when they began. Bungie did talk about this in their GDC more recently, discussing over delivering, but I think they're missing the part where they already established high standards. So missing on content may hit the new standard, but it doesn't hit the core player base standard. Over time, this issue of trials would get worse, and the memes would also spread out the half-baked statements. The release of Destiny 2's Beyond Light expansion had been met with mixed reactions from the gaming community. While many had praised the new content, there had also been an outcry from fans of the game's PvP. The Crucible had been a staple of the game since its launch. Players had spent countless hours competing, and it's no surprise the Crucible has been a major factor in the game's success. However, the new Beyond Light expansion had taken a toll on the Crucible. The new expansion had drastically changed the game's meta, making it much more focused on abilities. The new expansion had also removed a number of popular weapons from the game, making it difficult for players to find the perfect loadout. The sunsetting idea, just like Trials, was panned for being half-baked. Sunsetting would remove over 15 Crucible maps, including some of the most beloved ones. The idea of sunsetting was nice. Sunset now for more content to replace, and with the notion that Bungie had a year of less content than a year with so much, Beyond Light delivering nothing in PvP hurt the player base of Crucible tremendously. Have a look at how strong Stasis was as well.
The Stasis subclasses are broken, and if you give it to a good player, they're gonna make some plays with that. They're gonna freeze you all the time. It's been happening in comp for me like every single game.
Oh my god, I can't activate the
You're gonna have to play a lot to kind of figure out. Oh, look at this.
What? The changes have caused a sharp decline in the number of players in the Crucible, with some players even abandoning the game altogether. In addition, the lack of new content has caused the game's skill ceiling to decrease significantly. This has caused the game to become less competitive, as players are no longer able to challenge each other on an even playing field. It is clear that Beyond Light had a major impact on the game's PvP. While the new content may be welcomed by many, there are still a large number of players who are disappointed with the changes. Bungie now had to find a way to revive the game's PvP. They had to find a way to make the game competitive again, while also introducing new content and weapons. Only then would the game be able to reclaim its former glory. By the end of the year, in the 30th anniversary, it was about balance, and players were looking for that. And although not a single new map was added to Beyond Light and only one update to the Trials of Osiris loot pool, players came back because PvP is fun. This was because there was the first time separation of sandbox between PvE and PvP as a direct response to Stasis. And this aligns with another portion of the GDC conference where Bungie outlines that they can release something and fix it later, like a train station instead of a train. Agree or disagree, players then were told, after being told in Shadowkeep that there was a renewed focus on PvP, that Bungie just created a sandbox team. Well, let's see how that ages in Witch Queen. Witch Queen arrived with no new Crucible maps or modes. In fact, it arrived with almost nothing in PvP. But the idea was that while Witch Queen may not have had anything, it was coming. A brand new map was to be made, and Disjunction launched with Season of the Haunted and the returning mode Rift. Rift was now round-based, which was not what players really expected, and some people don't like it. It's kind of 50-50. And Disjunction isn't a fan favorite, with a lot of players pointing out the similarity to a Destiny 1 map. Along with struggles to win fans back, Bungie was also introducing subclass reworks to Arc, Solar, and Void that would only go on to demolish the Crucible more. Stasis was awful, probably the worst meta since nobody likes being slowed, but invis and ability spam would go to make matters worse. Not to be triumphed, Bungie also introduced airborne effectiveness, making your guns no longer work perfectly fine in the air. The idea was to test it out for Strand coming with Lightfall, but they didn't say that at the time, and the response is what you'd expect. If Bungie wanted to shift the PvP meta, they needed to be more considerate of the sandbox, since the abilities were mostly ground powerful, and now that weapons couldn't work in the air, you need to out-cheese another player. On top of this, the Adept loot had one mod that was really worth using in PvP, Icarus Grip, which was now hit incredibly hard by these changes, making no incentive to chase Adept PvP roles. Not to be triumphed again, Bungie introduced strict skill-based matchmaking in quick play, with quitting penalties. These came with harsh time punishments, and with how thin-wired these error codes can be, the changes only serve to hurt the player base more. With no new content, harsh skill-based matchmaking, airborne effectiveness limiting what made gunplay special, ability spam, and for the first time ever, a cold shoulder from Bungie themselves on the issues, this mode was ready to die. Now, here we are, the final season of the Witch Queen, Season of the Seraph, where Bungie looked to introduce a rework to competitive Crucible with a ladder system nodding to the 2004 Halo 2. This could have been huge, but Bungie missed hard on these changes. One reward, Rose, which was a sunset weapon from Forsaken with unique perks to make it at least a little exciting. But harsh skill-based matchmaking made playing this game mode frustrating. I understand wanting similar skill in these games, but skill-based and rank-based are entirely different, as Bungie implemented a hidden MMR into this. No cosmetic rewards, no incentive past the participation games for a Rose, and all of the problems from the year into what is supposed to be a season carrying mode. Even the logo for reaching the Ascendant rank didn't look different enough to fit a rework. Bungie took flack again from fans calling it a reskin, and not anywhere close to a rework. And I always point back to the train station example Bungie used, and why it may just not work at all. We have seen this happen to Gambit. We have seen this across the game, and the worst case is the Crucible, a once lifeblood of reason to log on, reduced to a shell of its former self. The Crucible has fallen out of favor with many players. There were several reasons for the decline of the Crucible over the years, from the rise in 2014 all the way to the downfall in vanilla Destiny 2, to the quick rise in Forsaken, and the downfall in Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, and Witch Queen. Despite these challenges, Bungie remains committed to improving the Crucible experience and hopefully bringing players back to the game. The developer continues to release updates, but ultimately, the fall of Destiny's Crucible was a result of changing players' preference and the intense competition in the multiplayer shooter market. While Destiny may never reclaim its former glory in the Crucible, it still remains a beloved and iconic title to fans of the game. Will Lightfall change this, or will it fall even further down? Eventually, it can change, but Bungie may need to rethink the train station for that to happen. Thank you for watching this video. If you made it this far, I want to point to one specific reason this topic is so important. You see, not only is Crucible the foundation of Destiny, combining the elements that made Halo and Call of Duty special, but it's also a fan favorite. You see, I wrote this with the help of an AI called ChatGPT, and while it didn't write all of this, if an AI can detect the problems, and Bungie has a history of being dependent on statistics determining the decisions that they make, and AI looking at those statistics, shouldn't Bungie change the Crucible for the better? Thank you everyone, and have a nice day.